And here's hoping we have good internet. Okay. There we go. All right. Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek for Friday night, January 25th, 2019. We are officially back, and in short order, we will be discussing the week's events in Geek. I am your host, Adam Mickelson. I hope everybody has had an awesome holiday couple of weeks. I was going to say holiday weekend. That doesn't really make sense with it. And also a little bit of January. For me, I have been busy as crap taking care of kids, changing diapers, all the fun stuff that you would expect from parenting, as well as being able to do other work around the house, do other work for other projects that are going on. And yeah, so tons of stuff to be had, as well as major things that you guys can look forward to on the podcast. But of course, I am not alone in this endeavor. I am being joined by my panel of fellow geeks, fellow YouTubers, fellow awesome guys in general. And if you guys are not following their content, you are hateful sons of biatches. That's what you are. And the one that you're the most hateful towards is Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, of From the Shelf, Rhapsody in Cinema. I was going to say Romney's Reviews again. It doesn't work anymore. Romney, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good, and for the record, Adam does not speak for all of us when he says that you're all hateful sons of biatches.
No.
I mean, some of us are
just
actually willing...
you, Dave!
Yeah. It's just some of us are actually willing to curse, whereas he's not, because, again, 2 kids. But the week's been, well, pretty good. If my voice sounds a little bit hoarse, I nearly wrecked it auditioning for a project a friend of mine is working on, so if I sound a little froggy, that's kind of why.
Gee, that's kind of my issue this month as well, as I've been doing a lot of cranking out of auditions, so I completely understand the pain. And then we are also being joined out of the shadows by the Shadow Blazer himself, Alex Short, who is hopefully going to be able to join more people out of the shadows as he covers the various animes that are going to be coming out, or the animus, as people want me to say, in 2019. Alex, how you doing?
Actually doing pretty well. I got a review up yesterday.
We don't believe you.
It's true. I did. I hit a bit of a snag at the start because unfortunately I got one of those auto-detected. I'm pretty sure it was auto-detected worldwide blocks from Bandai Namco Arts. I disputed the claim, and Bandai Namco re-released it within a few hours. And just today, the other couple claimants, which were just saying I can't monetize it, which I can't do anyway, also released their claim. So I'm happy about that.
Well, and if I remember correctly, the Crunchyroll Anime Awards have happened. So
the nominations have happened.
Oh, the nominations have happened.
And
okay,
the voting happened, but the award ceremony itself has not happened yet.
So for the record, we have, if people listen to the best and worst of 2019 or of 2018, we have given Alex his assignment. He has to watch the Crunchyroll Anime Awards and catalog and note every single time Hide Guardian Spice is mentioned.
To be honest, I'm kind of doubtful it's going to get mentioned because there hasn't been hide or hair of it since its initial announcement. So.
I think Elation learned their lesson. Although, weird tangent, Animus needs to be like a line of like cow plushies that are dressed up as various anime characters.
I was gonna say, do we need a T-shirt of that with like Drax saying, "Show me the Animus"?
No, see, that'll just be the commercial where we just have you saying, "Show me the Animus," and then we just hold up the plushies that are just like cosplaying cow plushies.
And I would just like to point out for the record, like, this is an amazing thing that we are actually getting back together at least tonight. Why? Because some people off in the corner might see a PS4 game right there, and I would be playing it right now, if not for all of you. So make sure to properly fund the Zombie Anti-Defamation League, as you heard earlier on in this recording if you listen to the RSS feed. Because they need your money, damn it. Along with Sarah McLachlan. She's just looking to plug more of her song.
Well, and especially, you know, money to hire an actual spokesperson. I mean, come on, you heard the ad. I mean, they need their help. They need the help, all the help they can get.
They do. In the arms of an undead angel. Yeah, that's
so
exactly what he said.
Because they're technically undead.
In the arms of an undead gargoyle. Something like that.
Gargoyles aren't alive either.
Yeah, so
in the arms of an umbrella drug lord.
Better.
Yeah, that works. Actually, it really does. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the week's events in Geek. Now, technically, these are not the week's events in Geek, as when we took our break for 2018 and into 2019, something very odd occurred. Is that we'd had a couple of slow weeks up until our break, and then all of a sudden the internet exploded. And there was tons of stories to be able to take on, and everybody's like, oh could you please suspend your break so you can talk about this? And, well, we talked about a little bit of it in the best and worst of 2018, but we also did say that this week we would go into all the crap we missed. Now, we can't go into everything because there's frankly too much. There's just too much to be able to go into. However, we're going to tackle as much of it as we possibly can, starting with gaming, because the biggest amount of news came out of the gaming industry, and most of that being kind of tied to the stuff we're going to be talking about right now. I don't necessarily have these up, but somebody actually brought to my attention a Young Yeah video that actually went into this, is that because of recent decisions with most of the North American AAA companies, because of overall reception from gamers on these, shareholders were not pleased, as you actually got to see all of the major North American AAA companies have stock dives between November and December, with the steepest obviously being Electronic Arts for their problems with Battlefield 5, amongst other things, as well as Activision Blizzard for their whole kerfuffle. Literally, their dive started right after BlizzCon, so we all know why that happened. Hashtag, do you have phones? So at that point, we have like all of these stiff dives because of stupidity that was being implemented from the various companies. The third big dive that I should also mention, because it's continued on into January, is Bethesda. And part of that is just because, let's just all be honest with each other. Fallout fans and Bethesda employees. You go to one corner and you go to the other corner and nobody talks to each other for about a month. We good? Nobody advertises to the other. Nobody talks about buying games. Nobody considers whether or not to buy your $200 collector's edition. We all just play in our other ends of the sandbox. We cool? We cool. That's the best way to be able to go over it, because the stupidity that came out of all of it, so much so that actually we can officially confirm, or at least there's talking of it, that Bethesda's so fed up, they're basically just going to transition Fallout 76 into free-to-play. How do you feel about buying that $200 collector's edition now, fans? Just saying. So without further, like I said, there's way too many gaming stories to be able to go into. So what we've basically done is the panel have dug up some of the weirder stories, the ones that they followed, and we're just going to go ahead and go over those, and then I'm going to wrap things up with the ones that you, as listeners, brought to us for our attention, and we'll just see if we can wrap up as much of this as we possibly can without taking a whole 2 hours. So first things first, Alex, Romney, who wants to go first?
Go ahead. So
right.
Just pick out a story that weird...
like one or two stories that just drove you nuts in gaming.
I wouldn't say drove me nuts, but it was definitely interesting to follow, and that was the whole Soja Boy selling his own consoles. But he wasn't really selling his own consoles, he was selling Chinese knockoffs.
Don't call it a comeback! But you didn't go anywhere. Nah, man, I didn't go anywhere. What's the quote that he actually did say? Like, don't call it a comeback. Well, how is it a comeback? Oh, man, I haven't been gone. The crap is wrong with you?
Yeah.
I thought it was weird when Screw Attack made fun of you years ago. Now I'm thinking that was a charity. Anyway, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun story to follow through. Basically, just him selling Chinese knockoffs of better consoles.
Like better consoles, like knockoff pirate, like loaded with a bunch of ROMs of other games, and
It's like,
I mean, the funniest thing I remember is that someone tweeted, "Oh, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate now available on the Soulja game," and he retweeted it, even though it was fake.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and even better, he was actually
emulation.
So now he's talking about doing a handheld version, and then he retracted that too.
Yeah. And it's like he's selling emulation consoles, but he's not even selling good emulation consoles like Retron, you know. He's just selling really pieces of crap. And of course Nintendo was like threatening. It's like, oh, you're gonna do that? Oh, well, we're gonna come after you.
Dude, my older brother knows nothing of Soulja Boy. So like he joked at this whole thing because he looked at the console that this guy was selling. He's like, dude, I could build a better one in my sleep. And he's not wrong.
No,
I mean, granted, it wouldn't be able to play cartridges. It'd be completely digital. But yeah, he could build one.
Yeah, see, that's when you need to do, where you have him build one as a Bird Box challenge. Bird Box console building.
Yeah, that's probably not happening since he thought Bird Box was stupid. But there you go. So that's one story. I have a feeling I know another one that you're going to bring up, Alex.
I don't know. There's a lot that happened. I'm trying to remember everything.
Well, I mean, one of the jokes that we could make is, you know, Blizzard is notorious now for saying you got phones, right? I'm sure you have a response for that now.
Oh, yeah. Well, indeed, I do have a phone now. Got one for Christmas, but no, I'm still not going to buy Diablo.
But not only that, hey, Blizzard, you got any CFOs?
Got any CFOs? Do you guys not have CFOs?
I know, right? So to basically brush this over, Blizzard lost 2 CFOs. One of the ones that was actually screwing up their company, they lost to Netflix. And then they hadn't had their next CFO for more than maybe a day, and they lost them to Square Enix. Activision, you done goofed. Because both of these are Activision appointed.
See, this is what happens when the other guilds get stronger rogues. They just come in and steal your stuff.
Okay, that may have broken me.
14 minutes in, new record.
There you go. There you go. But the other thing, too, that we should probably also report with Blizzard is that there's actually talk right now that they may have actually poached the head writer for Cyberpunk 2077. We don't know what team he's going to, but the strong speculation he's going to World of Warcraft. I actually have a feeling he's going to Diablo. So does this make up for the lack of 2 CFOs? No. No, you can't keep CFOs for some reason. Jiminy Christmas. How about, you know, this is going to be the only Bethesda one that I'm going to bring up, but I have a feeling you guys aren't. How about if you hacked or modded the game and you got permabanned, you could get back in if you wrote a nice 250-word essay about what you did wrong.
Wow.
What can be said? I mean, does Bethesda think they're a school principal now?
Dear Bethesda, I know I did wrong. I did a wrong thing. A thing that was wrong. I'm not sure what that wrong thing was, but now that I'm admitting to it, I can get into your shitty-ass game, right?
You're Blizzard. Go fuck yourself.
No, Bethesda, not Blizzard. Bethesda.
No,
Bethesda did this.
Sorry.
That's what you add to the letter in order to try to curry favor with Bethesda. You
Yeah, exactly. That pretty much guarantees you into Fallout 76 at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and if there's no guarantee you'll get back in, but if you manage to create code that, you know, fixes problems with the games, they'll just like, yeah, we're still banning you, but we'll keep the code.
Oh my gosh. So other stories that you had, Alex, before we move on into Romney.
How sad it is to see Sega pull the same fiasco with their Alien franchise and make an Alien mobile game.
Yeah, I saw that too. Oh my gosh. And Isolation's the good one, right? That's the one that people liked.
Isolation. I've not played it myself. I watched Markiplier play it, but I thought it looked really good. I should pick it up myself sometime.
Well, now you shouldn't, because there's a mobile game and you'd be supporting the mobile game.
No, go screw that mobile game. I'll go buy the real.
I mean, for crying out loud, it did well enough that they brought actual Sigourney Weaver in for DLC.
Yeah.
And what's the first thing you do with it? Bring it to mobile, of course.
Yeah. I mean, mobile games have kind of taken the slot that the bad movie tie-in games have taken, where it's the shovelware you crap out to try to keep your brand relevant.
Pretty much. So,
I mean, look at
okay.
what's going on with Landsgrisser that Sega is trying to push out. So it's not just Alien that they're bending over. It's their knockoff of Fire Emblem that they're trying to promote as, oh, yeah, it's this great classic. Yet they cram all the ads with so much fan service that it makes those Ebony banner ads look tame.
Pretty much. So there you go. Romney, why don't you give me a couple that you have as well, and we'll just keep this going.
Well, I don't follow the gaming news sphere as much as I probably should, being on this podcast, but there were a couple of stories that did catch my attention. One is the fact that GameStop as a company has not been doing too well. And so much so that they're in talks to be sold to another company, with the announcement set for mid-February, according to a report from GameSpot. And we've been hearing this for quite some time, because there was that game rental service that blew up in its face, and then just a lot of the bad rap that GameStop has been getting. And so, yeah, 2019 and like late 2018 and early 2019 hasn't been too good for GameStop.
I was actually going to say, like, for 2018, in between Toys R Us, there were GameStop stories of like them being sold off or their owners trying to get rid of it, stuff like that. So, I mean, we were covering it in 2017, and I think in 2018 guaranteed, but I'm not sure about 2017. We were covering a lot of that, and now so we're going to get the official announcement in March.
Yeah,
and
looking at it, the original story comes from the Wall Street Journal. What we know so far, and this is according to a quote-unquote insider at GameStop, so take that what you will, but the two companies interested in buying the company are Sycamore Partners and Apollo Global Management. Looking up, so Sycamore is basically just a capital firm, a private equity firm. They've raised over $4.57 billion in capital last July. And then Apollo is just another firm. They're basically, you've got two investment firms that are looking to buy this retailer that, honestly, it's kind of getting its butt kicked by, well, other retailers like Amazon, or heck, even Walmart Walmart and Smith's stores have been doing better.
Yeah, because Walmart has been expanding its game library, and it's already kind of kicking the crap out of GameStop just because it's covering the new games.
Man, honestly, the other thing is just better customer service. That's honestly what kills most of these companies, is that, yeah, you may offer best prices, you may have the games in stock, but if your employees treat the customers like crap, they ain't coming back.
No, they really aren't. And so that's, I'm actually kind of happy that we're going to get this announcement in March, just because, like, GameStop has just been kind of like Old Yeller. We've been debating as the little boy whether or not to pick up the gun and actually shoot them. But yeah, they're circling the drain at this point. So either this can breathe new life, or they can finally get sold off.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the life cycle of any company. I mean, GameStop basically rose to prominence by buying up a bunch of smaller retailers like Software, etc., EB Games, and so on.
And some might actually make the claim that those companies they bought up did their job better than GameStop did.
I remember at least things were a bit more organized, and so I think really what's hurt GameStop and why it's doing so poorly is that they've kind of put too much money in the used game market, and then expecting a lot of these limited edition, like, retail versions of games to cover any shortfall. But, well, people are going to Amazon because you don't have to go out and get it. You can just order it online, and if you've got Prime, you get it. I mean, no, even without Prime, if you pre-order a game, you're guaranteed to get it day and date.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I've already kind of moved, like, when I was doing reviews and doing stuff for AAA, like, I was relying on Amazon for some of it, but I was also relying on GameStop, just because some of those pre-orders on Amazon, you had to wait a while till you got an email notification when they got more copies. So at that point, I'm actually glad that this year, not only am I kind of cutting back on that, but I can use Amazon legitimately, because I don't have a problem with Amazon, whereas I have tons of problems with how GameStop operates.
Not to mention the digital marketplace has gotten a lot stronger. I mean,
yeah.
For example, if someone wanted to, say, buy Smash Brothers and they wanted to play it today, you could go to a GameStop and hope they have it in stock, which they probably will because it's Smash Brothers, or you could just as easily go to Nintendo's website, get the game digitally, and not have to wait to get home. You literally just download it, and boom, it's there.
Yep. The other one that I also want to bring up with GameStop before we move to your next story is this one actually got brought to us, and I forgot to add it to the agenda, but this one people did want us to talk about, and that was the incident involving a New York GameStop where a busy employee was trying to handle multiple customers at once and just so happened to accidentally misgender a trans woman that walked into the store. And this poor little employee probably regrets that now because the guy literally, I'm sorry, I don't have any respect for the dude just because he didn't handle himself respectfully. That's why I don't have a problem misgendering him. He tore up half the store because he got misgendered and then basically told this little employee that after he tore up the store and demanded a corporate number, that he put his life at risk. I think it's the other way around, dude. You put everybody else's life at risk. Because there were other people in that store. Just, okay. And you want to know what the sad reality is? Is that it's New York. They're coming down on the dude's case. GameStop is going to have to apologize.
Yeah, I mean, you've got people actually trying to make this world a better place for members of the LGBT community. And then you've got crap like this that sets everything back a good 10 years. Well,
I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Like, I've seen this video. I don't know if you guys have actually seen this footage. And I know that I know that in some amongst the LGBT community, it is considered to be hurtful to say that, that we should bring up things like mental illness. But the way that guy operated, I'm sorry, he needs to be checked into a mental hospital. He does, because it's not just LGBT or anything like that. He's downright psycho.
Yeah, I mean, and again, stuff like that, if it's legitimately an honest mistake, that's no excuse to flip out on someone.
And it was. It was a common case of, you know, Alex, you probably deal with this on a number of occasions. Like you're dealing, especially during the holidays, you're dealing with multiple customers at once and you accidentally do something that pisses them off. You know, I did this a lot when I was in call centers and we had huge call volume during like Super Bowl weekend or something like that, where unfortunately you didn't hear it right and you accidentally called a sir, a ma'am.
Yeah.
And some of them laugh it off and there's like, it's okay. I get it all the time kind of thing. But then you would have cases like this guy where he would literally rip apart your store because you did that. I cannot think of I could think of smaller things that you could rip a store apart for. But frankly, I mean, he's kind of, I actually will say this. He's glad that I wasn't the store manager because I wouldn't be arguing with the guy. I'd be calling the cops and arresting him and getting him arrested for destruction of public property.
Well, I guess it would tend to be destruction of private property.
Yeah, destruction of private property. Sorry. But yeah, that's how ridiculous that whole thing got. And I've kind of given my opinion to people if you were able to catch me when I checked in on social media or something like that. But that is ridiculous. And I'm sorry, but the guy, for what he did in the store, he needs to be checked into a mental facility. Because I'm sorry, like, you know, bring on a normal person, they would not have this problem, especially if you misgendered them and the guy knows that you have like 5 or 6 customers you're dealing with and you didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, and that's just the fundamental problem here. And this is why people, I mean, we're already kind of riding the line of the like no politics rule.
This is about as far as we go today.
Yeah, but basically, if you're someone who is championing for LGBTQ rights, this is not the way to conduct yourselves. You send the wrong message. You basically are making the people pushing back against the advancement of those rights. You're giving them fodder to say, see, look, these people are clearly deranged. I mean, it's the classic X-Men example. You're basically pulling a Magneto here, making everyone look bad, and then you act all surprised when people are naturally going to be wary. I mean, come on. If it was someone who was doing it deliberately to piss someone off, even then, exploding like that is still not a good reaction. I mean, if it was malicious, at least there would be some justification. But
yeah,
if it's an overworked employee who makes an honest mistake, because let's face it, even people who aren't necessarily transgender, it's sometimes just hard to tell if someone is a man or a woman because of various factors, the clothing they're wearing, how out of shape they might be. Sometimes you just don't know because
sometimes you get whatever cursory glance you got. And in some cases, I mean, if the guy had been wearing pink, he probably would have been called man, like in that given case where you take the information that you have at that given moment. But he was wearing all gray and he was wearing a tracksuit that looked like a guy would wear. So at that point, I mean, the employee did what the employee was going to do. He was trying to handle way too many things at once because it's the holidays, and it did not work out in his favor. I'm actually kind of surprised. From what I understand, the guy's still working there, and he might have every reason to never work at GameStop ever again.
Yeah, but then again, this is New York, so it's pretty much, no matter where you go, it's
got to pay the rent.
Got to pay the rent, and well, New York is known for being kind of dangerous. I mean, and this is coming from someone who's grown up in Utah his whole life and hasn't actually set foot. And so again, my opinions on this may be rather skewed, but this kind of is the epitome of the problem with identity politics in society. But that's a whole separate tangent for another time.
And the one thing I'll point out, and then I'm just going to kind of wrap this up, is that unfortunately, you know, in the interactions that I've had with LGBT, this is the example I've had. Like, so as much as there are the average ones that we talk about and we praise, these are the ones that I have access to. These are the ones that I deal with, is the ones that are having major aggression issues and all of that. And so at that point, this is why in a lot of cases, I just come out and say, I don't support either way, because I just see the unsavory element.
Yeah, and luckily I've had more positive interactions with members of the transgender community, and a lot of them even condemn violent actions like this because they understand that, hey,
and they should.
This does not help our cause. This makes people afraid of us. This sets everything back, and a lot of people forget that there's a lot, like with any community, they're not monolithic. You've got it's a spectrum, much like gender, much like sexuality. You have spectrums within the transgender community, some that go the more extreme route where they try to micromanage the way everyone interacts with them, and others who just want to do their own thing. They don't tear people's heads off if they get something wrong. They just politely correct them and go on with their day, which is honestly what anyone should really do because, again, we're only human after all.
Exactly. So that being said, what's another story that caught your eye during our break, Romney?
Well, going from a tantrum in GameStop to the world of organized crime, using Fortnite V-Bucks for money laundering.
Yeah, I saw this too, and it just, I had no words. I'm just like, wow, the mafia is using 12-year-olds to do their financial work for them.
Honestly, it's a scheme as old as time. I mean, in the past, it would be gift cards, but now because of things like in-game microtransactions, you've created a whole new money laundering scheme where if you steal someone's credit card and want to drain their accounts, but you don't want it to be traced to you, I could actually say I have a friend who immediately canceled his credit. Like, he had a credit card for microtransactions on Fortnite where he would do minor ones, and as soon as he saw this happening, he canceled it right off the bat, which pissed off his kids. Well, that's probably the smart thing to do.
That is the smart thing to do. Like, if you hear that's happening.
Well, yeah, and especially given that you've got these V-Buck codes being sold on the dark web, which, as someone who's gone on a few forays into the dark web and the deep web, it's very much the hive of scum and villainy that many media outlets portray it to be. I wish it was an exaggeration, but sadly, it isn't. I mean, if you look at any of the search engines on the deep web, they literally advertise stolen credit cards, stolen such and such in huge banner ads. And so, yeah, this is an industry. And so this is just yet another outlet for people to launder stolen money. And Epic Games is unfortunately an unwitting mule. And it's kind of one of those, I mean, the article itself, coming from The Independent, it's trying to point it as, oh, see, this game is evil. Children are helping fund organized crime, when really, if not Fortnite, it would be something else. I mean,
it would be PUBG at this point. It would be Battlefield 5.
like PUBG, League of Legends, if there was some sort of microtransaction currency in World of Warcraft, then naturally people would be doing those, selling like BattleNet keys on the dark web if that was a way money could be laundered. I mean, another good example, like look at stuff like Pokemon Go or even Fire Emblem Heroes. You've got like microtransactions in those games to get like the various codes and stuff. If there was a way to resell that stuff, of course they would use those apps, because if you're trying to hide the fact that your money is ill-gotten, you got to spread it out as far as you can. I mean, that's why mobsters would start film studios and dry cleaning companies and boxing gyms. All these various businesses that are fronts to launder this ill-gotten money, because the more hands it passes through, the much harder it is to track.
All right. Now we're kind of running out of time for the time that I'm allowing for this. So I'm just going to go ahead and lightning round some of the other stories that some of the listeners wanted us to talk about, which might be in Romney's camp or in Alex's camp, but let's go ahead and go over them really quick. First of all, Bungie splits with Activision and takes Destiny with them.
Good for Bungie. Get the hell out of that awful company.
You know what? I was clapping when I read this story. Like this. Now, granted, Destiny 2 is still on the Battle.net app. Activision still has the rights to that. But Bungie basically said, if we want to go make another Destiny, we're going to go do it on our own, because they saw the writing on the wall at Activision and Blizzard to some extent and said, yeah, we don't want to be part of this. Great. This is a great decision by Bungie.
Yeah, and honestly, it's a case of, well, Activision, we do have phones, but we're taking our franchise with us.
Abso-freaking-lutely. And you should, by the way. Moving into the next one, EA cancels another Star Wars game.
Big surprise, EA stocks.
Take a shot.
Can we just... Disney, please, could you pull a Scorpion really quick and take the rights to Star Wars and go get over here?
Sad thing is, I just don't think EA cares.
I was surprised they still have one more.
Well, given that they've recently announced another title, EA's contract is still pretty much set, because much as we dislike them, the Battlefront games made a decent amount of money. Granted, Battlefront 2 was a huge debacle and a half, but EA, that's the thing with contracts. They have set terms that companies have to agree to, and sometimes they have clauses that allow one party or another to break them. But knowing Disney and knowing EA, it's very much one of those that they each are signing the contract, but they also each have a knife behind their back to, waiting for the other to flinch. And so it's one of those cases where, yeah, EA canceling a Star Wars game, big whoop. They probably do it like every week. It's like Capcom with Mega Man games.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they still have other titles on the table. I know they recently announced the upcoming Jedi Fallen Order game, which people are wondering, is this going to be like Battlefront, where it'll be
We won't know until E3 this year, because they've already said that they won't be unveiling it till then.
So basically, another field trip to Skywalker Ranch. Hooray!
That's what I'm guessing, especially considering it's supposed to be a holiday title for this year. So it'll be really stupid if it's a trip to Skywalker Ranch and it gets delayed.
Now, see, that's what it'll be, is that, oh, well, we were going to go to Skywalker Ranch, but our flight got delayed. And so you just have, like, the people from DICE sitting in an airport.
There you go. There you go. Moving on into the next story. Back to Activision. Call of Duty tries to sell a dot for $1. It gets even worse. They tried to sell a dot that looks like a happy face for $2.
Can we we need another industry crash, and we need it hard.
At least when it comes to Activision.
Well, I think the whole AAA industry needs to crash.
Honestly,
let's not let the indies crash, please. Let's not let them.
I mean, honestly, if Activision's the reason that we have another crash, well, it would just be history repeating itself, because, well, they were there.
Activision caused that one too, yeah.
Well, they didn't cause it, but they were there when it happened, and they were one of the major contributors to the crash. So if this is what causes the crash, it's like, Activision, I guess you just had so much fun the first time you decided to break the industry again.
I'll admit, like, I looked at that story and I'm like, really? I should be surprised right now, but I'm not.
All right, I'm calling it here. What's going to break the industry is going to be another movie tie-in that was cranked out in 3 months. That's what's going to do it, is that we're going to see some sort of free-to-play, microtransaction-riddled movie tie-in game that they try to rush out in 3 months, and that will break the industry once again.
Yep. And the final one that we're going to go into, because people wanted me and Romney specifically to talk about this, Street Fighter V implements in-game advertising. And it's ugly as shit.
Oh, Capcom. It didn't work for Resident Evil Outbreak. Why would you try this again?
Have you seen the images, Romney?
I haven't, but
Okay, I
Capcom
actually need to show you
adds-
these as per request of the listeners. So yeah, basically what they did was they tried to incentivize you to have the in-game advertisements because you would get more fight money, the currency in Street Fighter V, if you had it on. But you could turn it off whenever you wanted. But the incentive was that you would get more that you would get more fight money, which is how you buy characters and costumes and all that stuff. So yeah, they pretty much just kind of put you in a bit of a bad corner. So let me go ahead and showcase this really quick so you can sit back and cry a little bit in your tea or whatever you're drinking. So here you go. So this is just a sample, and it's far worse in the actual engine. So this was an example that they showed of doing the Capcom Pro Tour. You can already see that like Balrog is just laden with advertisements, and you can only see it on the gloves and maybe on Ryu's lapel right there for his gi. But when you get into the actual engine, they're both pelted in in-game advertisements. Absolutely pelted in them. So yeah, bad move, Capcom.
Honestly, this doesn't surprise me. I mean, Capcom was really banking on the fighting game scene latching on to Street Fighter V. That's why when it was released at launch, it was very much, oh, well, we have the game out, but we released the story later as DLC.
Well, it got worse because as soon as they announced that this was going to be a thing, just that they were testing it, when they retracted it, it didn't matter because a quarter of their active online fan base had left.
Yep, this is why
Arxis damage is done. As far as I'm concerned, can we just officially call Street Fighter V a failure? Just absolutely. They've done everything they could possibly do wrong with that game.
Yeah, I mean, Capcom, they seem to be having a mix of highs and lows. With the games that they don't expect to do well, they seem to actually go the extra mile. But with their major franchises, they just seem to keep dropping the ball. I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if, because of all of this, you don't see Street Fighter V at the next EVO. You basically have them just go back to Street Fighter 2 Ultra Hyper Turbo Mega Remix Edition.
Well, from what I understand, 5 Arcade Edition is actually having a little bit of trouble getting into EVO right now, simply because they wanted to be able to bring this crap there, along with to advertise their Capcom Pro Tour, and EVO wasn't having any of that shit.
Yeah, this is kind of like the Comic-Con lawsuit that we got a while back between Salt Lake and San Diego. You don't advertise your event at another event. That's just bad form.
Well, and this is just a perfect example of something that I've been hearing for many years now in the gaming industry. There is nothing like, look, in a Grand Theft Auto game, it makes sense to see a Coca-Cola ad. All right, even though you'll see their derivative or whatever. It makes sense to see that. But the second we start seeing that in World of Warcraft, I see a Coca-Cola ad in the middle of Ironforge, will be the time when millions of people just unsubscribe to it. Well, because gamers just, they don't want that. They already don't want, you know, there's some debate on the microtransactions. There are people that kind of want those. In-game advertisements, especially when they don't make sense within the context, people don't want them.
Yeah, but here's the ultimate rebuttal of kind of showing that they're still going to do it anyway. Cup Noodle in Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, yeah. No, they'll find ways to be able to do it because they can get the money from that.
Yeah, I mean, even with Final Fantasy 15, they found at least some way for it to make sense. It's not like with Neopets' McDonald's.
Oh, I can guarantee you that. So the one thing that pissed me off from that whole Totino pizza roll deal was XP boosts were bound into a lot of those codes. That's going to be a thing from here on in, is XP boosts.
Yep.
So when they demo these games, their XP requirements are not going to be that big. As soon as it launches, they're going to jack those things up to get people to buy XP boosts.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at this point if we somehow see a cup noodle themed world in Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm calling it here. It's going to work its way in somehow.
Well, the food buffs are making their way into Kingdom Hearts 3 via Ratatouille, so it could happen.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they've probably got some sort of deal cooking up, pardon the pun, but it's just... This is the way society...
There is a Japanese company that they've got something going on with Kingdom Hearts 3, but I'm not sure what.
Well, this wouldn't be the first time. I mean, Square Enix did a Coca-Cola tie-in with Final Fantasy IX back when it was first released, so...
Yeah, oh yeah. Totally.
Again, this is Squeenix we're talking about. they are no dangers to whoring out their games for other product placements.
So what we're basically trying to wrap this thing up and go into the next story, what we're basically trying to say is AAA gaming, you done fucked up.
I'm surprised though you didn't bring up the 10 million lawsuits against Fortnite for dancing.
Oh, because everybody's covered it. I think one or two listeners brought it up, but they wanted us to not bring up the lawsuit. They wanted us to bring up MatPat and how he took stuff from Legal Eagle.
I'm gonna say, as somebody who follows Legal Eagle, I saw his take on it, but
no, well, and you're talking about the same subject matter.
Yeah, I think it's like, one, that video was 8 days apart. Two, they're both citing from the same text of law. MatPat said he consulted his own attorneys, and the time it probably takes to make a game theory, I'm calling it coincidence.
Which is basically what MatPat's doing a lot of these days.
Yeah, and that's honestly kind of the way it is, where, I mean, a lot of people might think, oh yeah, like one video is copying another, because this is the same thing we saw when you had the Rebel Taxi channel and the Mysterious Mr. Enter both do reviews of Rhapsody Street Kids. They thought, oh, one copied the other, where it's a case of, no, the original film that they reviewed was uploaded to the internet at the same time.
That's kind of the general consensus when we have plagiarism happen, is that a lot of people, like sensible people, will go the angle of, well, maybe they just have similar writing styles, or maybe they're going to the exact same source.
Well, yeah, and that was what it was, is that because with Rebel Taxi and Mr. Enter reviewing Rhapsody Street Kids, they thought, oh, Mr. Enter ripped off Rebel Taxi, but the fact that they ignored was that, oh, one person on the internet found a copy of this film, uploaded it online. Likely they both saw it independently and decided to work on reviews, because everyone is, of course, going to talk about it because this film was unearthed. Naturally, the reviews would come out around the same time, give or take, depending on how long it actually takes to whip up a review. Exactly. This isn't quite to the level of, what Philip Mewson tried to pull.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is like, that's the first assumption, is we go down that road of maybe they went to the same source or something like that. We don't want to go the Philip Mewson route unless we can confirm it's a Philip Mewson.
Yeah, and then the case with MatPat and Legal Eagle, as MatPat himself even defended in response to Legal Eagle, it's a case of, hey, we were both conducting research around the same time. We just so happened to reiterate a lot of the same points, because you can't copyright facts. If a fact is a fact, no one can copyright the fact that it's a fact. It's just a fact. You can copyright arrangements of facts, but even then, there's a lot of leeway that there's only so much you can do to protect it. And so there, like Alex said, it's a case where it's just a coincidence. And if two people are consulting lawyers about the same topic, they're probably going to tell them the same thing,
pretty much,
unless they're coming at it from different angles. Like
so it wasn't really that people wanted us to talk about the lawsuit itself, is that they wanted us to talk about the kerfuffle. And so at that point, it's like, there's not really a whole lot to add there, because I've gone over the evidence. It just looks like they both reference the same thing.
Honestly, the gamer from Mars went into much better detail, more succinctly than we could, where he basically looked at the facts, looked at what happened, and it's a case of, hey, here is what's going on, and here is what is going on with the YouTube trends. And honestly, that would, like, if you want opinions on it, watch the Gamer from Mars video about it. It's much more to the point. So we would just be beating a dead horse.
Pretty much. So let's go ahead and move on into the next story that we have tonight, because we're running out of time, obviously. And I know part of the reason that Alex is bringing up other stories that we could have talked about is because he doesn't want to talk about this one. But that's okay, because none of us do. But enough of you listeners brought it to our attention that I have to sit here and go, ugh. And that is that Sonic poster, yo. So, in case you didn't see these, 2 Sonic the Hedgehog movie posters were revealed, and they are grotesque. And pretty much everything that I feared with this film was going to be happening. It got such bad reception that the company that's making the Sonic movie had to put out a third one, simply saying, "Can a guy work out?" No, not to this extent.
Well, to play devil's advocate, it's at least nice that they're kind of just being a little more tongue-in-cheek about it, instead of trying to desperately retool their entire movie. At least there is a case of, yeah, we know it looks kind of silly, but Well, the film itself, by their own admissions, like, hey, this is not meant to be a super serious Sonic movie. This is just meant to be a fun, silly action comedy romp.
Then do the original damn design.
Yes, exactly. I don't get that. I don't get it. You go
Look,
to trouble.
I'm not usually the guy that brings up his legs are too long, his arms are not blue, or things like that. But I literally looked at that and went, "Daughter, shield your eyes. This will scare you."
I don't get the point. You go to the trouble to get the actual animation studio that does the game's animations, Marza Animation Planet. So why are you feeling this bizarre need to reinvent the wheel here? It's very simple. You have a design. It works fine. You're already meshing a cartoon character into the real world. Again, God only knows why. But just, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's just do what you have.
To play devil's advocate, though, I can kind of understand why they would want to revamp the design a little bit, is to kind of set the film apart from the other iterations of Sonic across media, because Sonic the Hedgehog's been going through a bit of an identity crisis as of late, because the Boom series didn't quite take off in the way Sega had hoped with the games, and although the show was still going on, the games didn't do so well, so they're trying to go back to basics. You've got the comics changing hand from Archie Comics to IDW, which is also causing further brand confusion. And so naturally, the people making the film at Paramount are probably thinking, okay, well, let's find a way that it's a version of Sonic that someone looks at it and they can tell, okay, this is the movie Sonic. This isn't the same Sonic from this, that, or the other, because that's kind of Sega's problem at this point. I'm not saying it's entirely like a good idea, but I can kind of see the logic there of trying to make their version of Sonic stand out amidst all the other iterations that we've been bombarded with over the past decade.
If you're gonna tie something to a franchise, then you keep to what makes it in that franchise. I mean, nobody liked the Boom redesigns, and I know the Sonic we know of today
we like
from
the
the
Boom
Sonic of
redesigns,
old. But look, look, I got this Mario here. You got Mario. His change hasn't designed that drastically over the 3 decades, sorry.
I would like to say that you are wrong, sir. He has nipples now.
He's got... Okay, well, that was the first time we ever saw him without a shirt. But anyway, his design hasn't changed that drastically over his 30 years as a game icon. Just, you don't need to. And if you're going to do it, don't do it that terrible. I mean, for God's sake, they can't even get the shoes right.
Yeah. To be fair, though, we still have yet to see Sonic's face, and I think that's what will make or break this, because we've only seen his legs, and we've only seen his arms.
I would like to pose an experiment for you all. Because shortly after those posters debuted, we had an interesting little experiment held over at IGN, where they asked the God of War art director to basically put his style onto certain Super Smash Bros. Characters. I'm just pointing this out for the record. Say what you want. Does that look like that could have been what was in the shadow?
Yeah, except the shoes are better.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly...
This is what he came up with, the art director of God of War, for Sonic the Hedgehog.
And frankly, that's kind of what I'm expecting at this point.
Honestly, I can kind of see that design being their approach. I mean, especially when you consider what we're getting in the Detective Pikachu film with how it's going for kind of the simulated fur with its creatures. And although it's kind of one of those things where I can see the logic here. It may not necessarily be a great idea, but I think what will make or break it is when they finally reveal Sonic's face and when we finally see it in motion with full voiceover and how it actually plays off of everything else. Because again, Sega and Paramount, they've been keeping things pretty close to the vest thus far. And so for all we know, the film could be a pleasant surprise, or it could be a giant dumpster fire, which wouldn't be the first time, all things considered. But it's very much one of those cases where they're keeping it close to the vest for now. And with the Canada Guy workout, looking at it, the legs are purposefully exaggerated to be even more muscular. I think they just took some guy's legs off of the internet and just pasted them in. So for all we know, it may not even be as muscular as that third poster. It could just maybe be a more streamlined design. We don't know yet. So, I mean, at least...
I think this pretty much covers our viewpoint on the posters, guys. We don't like them. We think this is a bad decision.
Well, I'm willing to give it a little bit of a chance if they don't take themselves so seriously, because that's the thing that always worries me whenever they try to adapt a character like Sonic, is that they suddenly think, oh, well, we need to have something more serious. And it's like, you can just have it be a silly, fun action movie. You don't have to try to deliver some sort of pathos. That was the problem with even some of the Sonic anime, where they tried to make the character more serious than he needed to be. I mean, look at Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, where it's like, oh, this is the gritty version that Americans want. No, it wasn't Sega. We never wanted that.
But that's also been the stat. We've gotten that status quo from the Happy Tree Friends writers over the last several games, and it's kind of wearing thin because it's getting to be a little. They're starting to lay it on too thick about how self-referential they're trying to be, that it's starting to kind of lose.
Well,
that's why I kind of say the adventure games probably had the best balance of the wit and the kind of relative seriousness. You know, you get the examples like Shadow, where they probably do go a little too far off into the opposite direction, or Sonic 06, which I think is even further off the deep end. But now you got things like Forces, which is trying to masquerade itself as being serious, but at the same time it's not holding true to that. So it's like, it feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be.
Yeah,
and then,
honestly,
if it has a comedy, fine, whatever.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of, I think, the best way to do it with a character like Sonic is not, rather than trying to do it as something serious, as something epic, it's just a case of, hey, just do it as kind of an action comedy, kind of like, I mean, a good example off the top of my head would be, and I can't believe I'm using this as a positive example because I can't stand the movie, but that would be the 21 Jump Street reboot, where it's a case of, yeah, we know this idea is kind of dumb. We know that this is a retread of a serious film, but it's a case of, hey, we know this is stupid, so we're going to embrace the fact that this is kind of stupid and that what everyone has seen before.
Yeah.
Granted, the first film is a better example of it. The second film did not need to exist, but it's a case of, if they go kind of that approach, but dial back the need to break the fourth wall, because Sonic is not Deadpool. We don't need any more Deadpools. We have enough Deadpools.
I think that the one concession that both me and Romney can agree on is wait till the first trailer. The trailer will tell us everything we need to know, and then at that point you can make whatever assessment. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm going to go out of my way to see this trailer, but I have a feeling I'm going to see it.
Yeah, and looking at the storyline that's posted on IMDb, it's generic and vague enough that it's hard to tell what tone they're going for. I mean, you're probably both going to roll your eyes out of your heads as soon as I read this, but according to IMDb, the official storyline is, a cop in a rural town of Green Hills will help Sonic escape from the government who is looking to capture him.
So,
yeah, that is pretty generic.
Sounds like a half-baked ET to me.
Well, honestly, if they kind of go the route, if they kind of embrace that they're ripping off ET, not in the same like, oh, we're going to do a bunch of references, but it's a case of, hey, we kind of, if they kind of embrace that, I guess the word I would use would be kind of that whimsy. If they keep kind of that youthful whimsy about it, rather than trying to be edgy about it or skew it older, I'm just like, okay, if you're going to go this route, skew a bit younger. Make it a bit more like just kind of a fun action adventure film for kids. Don't try to please everyone. Just narrow your focus, and then you'll have a better film. I mean, a good example, the Goosebumps film with Jack Black. It knew what it wanted to be, and it told its story really well.
True. All right, so moving on into the next story, because again, we're kind of running overtime right now. This one, listeners wanted us to bring up, but I kind of wished you hadn't, because as soon as I heard about this during my holiday break, it almost made me want to punch a wall, especially considering that I had just barely had my second daughter and had just barely dealt with this kind of a situation in my life. So if people are not already aware of Mr. Deadmoth on Twitch, he had a bit of an incident that has since landed him a permanent ban from Twitch, where he was streaming, I believe it was Fortnite, the video in question, and his wife, his pregnant wife, I should point out, was just barely done with dinner. And she asked him to come and join, and he got really snide with her. There's actually some testimony saying that they actually had guests and he was live streaming. So yeah, great host right there. But supposedly, we're not sure who started what, and frankly, I don't care. But while on Twitch camera, a domestic violence incident occurred where you can actually hear on the camera's audio Mr. Deadmoth beating his pregnant wife. The only reason that I say that this gets bad or that this gets domestic violence or cops territory is because supposedly, and again, I haven't really seen this video because if I did, the computer that I'm streaming from right now would not exist. There would be holes in it. That's why I haven't seen the video. But supposedly, the pregnant wife threw something at him, and that's what instigated. I'll get into my opinion on that when we get there. But suffice to say, cops were called, and the domestic incident was filed. Supposedly, he's actually got charges pending right now. And to kind of wrap this up, Twitch did suspend him, then brought him back for an hour. Let's give him that. An hour, and then permabanned him. And the sad thing about this whole deal is that there have since been 2 other incidences on Twitch reported of a male Twitch streamer having a domestic violence dispute with their wives. Both the other 2 aren't pregnant, but with their wives. And you can hear it and or see it. And Twitch permabanned them from what I understand too. Is Twitch in the right? You bet your ass they are. So let's get into this. I know that a lot of people like to bring up, well, she technically started it because she threw something. She's from what I understand, 4 to 6 months pregnant.
And she threw a piece of cardboard at him, and pretty much but she started it. It's the old playground excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this right here, right off the bat. And for those who take this as I'm mocking my wife or anything like that, you know where the door is, because there's no way I'm going to be able to explain it otherwise to you. When you're pregnant, crap in your body is being messed with. Your body is accommodating for a whole new life that is being born and built within it. Okay? That F's with everything, including things like your judgment. Things like how you would commonly handle a situation. Okay? So do you want to know why I don't find the wife at fault in this case? Because she probably wasn't in her right mind, so to speak. I'm not saying that she's completely in the right. She shouldn't have thrown something. But the bottom line is that she kind of has an excuse at this point. He, however, does not. He, however, knew what he was walking into and decided to beat the crap out of her anyway. Do you understand now why I don't fall on his side? Look, the wife may have done that. Okay? I've seen psycho wives do crap at Walmart. It happens. But she has a viable excuse. One that, by the way, after charges have been filed, she can sit on the witness stand and it's acceptable. All right? So at this point, as far as I'm concerned, good riddance to bad fucking rubbish. I'm glad the guy's gone. I'm glad he's perma-banned. I'm glad he's got charges. And frankly, if he was my next door neighbor, he wouldn't be alive right now. Just saying. Thoughts?
Yeah, I heard this story too, and and it made me did think of you, Adam. Not because I think you would do this sort of thing, but it made me think.
Oh yeah, I totally do this kind of thing all the time.
It makes me think of like how you're a better husband and father than this guy is, because I know you, and I know what when your kids need you or when your wife needs you, you can put down the controller, you can turn off the stream, you don't need to do whatever it is. You can you'll go help your family. That's what separates you from him. And that's why you're the far better husband and father here. And that's why I don't have sympathy for this guy. I don't care if she threw a piece of cardboard at him. And the sheer amount of mental gymnastics people are going through to defend this guy, it's astounding to me.
There are
And
other cases to be able to make your case. This isn't a good one.
you really want to fall on this hill? Good luck.
Yeah, you want to die on this hill? You want this to be your last stand? Okay, well then by all means. I can think of a dozen other situations that are grayer than this on Twitch. Okay. The one that comes to mind is the little spat that happened, because I'm still not entirely on the side of body painting on Twitch being a thing. And apparently a lesser streamer got mad at What's Her Bucket that did the bully hunters, because I guess when she was painting herself, she accidentally uncovered her nipple a little bit to paint, and she got a permanent, or it wasn't a permanent ban. It was like a 30-day ban from Twitch. And they got into a scuffle because lack of knowledge and a bunch of other things. Okay, there's a little bit more gray in that situation than there is here. The fact that people are defending him is kind of sickening to me. All right. And just as Alex kind of pointed it out, okay, I've had those moments. I get that he was on Fortnite and he was in the middle of whatever he was doing. I've been in the middle of a WoW raid, and my wife comes over and says, I need help with bath time. And here's my instant reaction. Are you ready for it? It's really complicated, so I want to make sure that you guys actually all see it. Hey, guys, I'm going to need to leave. I need to go do bath time. I'll see you guys later. And then I go and help. If anything, the only thing as close to a home invasion that I have to worry about is when my daughter storms through that door. But I can guarantee you my reaction is not going to be, oh, hi, daughter. No. I'll shoo her out. I'll let her have her cute moment, but that's going to be it. I'm sorry. There is no justification for Mr. Deadmoth.
There's been and he's got 2 other kids as well, and they're a little bit older, pretty young kids. I don't know how old, but
great example.
There's other videos where he's been seen yelling at his kids and like telling them to shut the fuck up and that shit. So it's like,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So this guy he's not a good guy. He needs to be disconnected from Twitch and what he does. He needs to learn to be a better person and he's going to have kids.
He needs to disconnect from games and get to know the family that he's disrespecting.
Yes.
That's my only viewpoint on the matter. And if people think I'm being preachy on the matter, you have the right to be able to have that opinion, but I'm not on this guy's side. This guy could have conducted himself so much better than he did, and he chose this route. And that's a choice that I could make as well, and I choose not to. So there you go. Romney, you've been kind of sitting and stirring for a while there. I have a feeling something's coming.
Well, it's not quite the rant train, because that's something I've actively worked against. Now, I can't comment on from the perspective of being a parent or being part of a larger family, but I can comment from the perspective of someone who has had anger issues throughout most of his life, and has been actively working on controlling his anger in more productive ways. And there's even evidence on camera on this show when I wasn't in control. We all know what that looked like. It was scary. Now, for the people defending...
To give just kind of a frame of reference, when was that? So that people can remember or whatnot.
Well... There's a reason that the trying to try Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian under the Logan Act remains as my least favorite story we've ever covered on this show. And that was when we saw the birth of the Romney Ranch train. I remember Aldo, who was also on the show, was visibly terrified with my rant. And that was when
it was definitely out of character.
Yes, that was when I was at my worst. So whenever I hear people try to justify actions of something like this, not even just with this particular person. I mean, this is coming from someone who went to a high school where there was an actual stabbing that was provoked by anger. Someone who, and I probably shouldn't be admitting this on the air, but someone who was in the headspace where if I had gone to a normal high school, we would have had another Columbine. Whenever anyone tries to defend actions like these, it irks me. It irks me because you don't understand how much it takes to actually keep that anger under control. And the fact that you're willing to justify any sort of action that involves violence. Because yes, we all have violent thoughts. We all have violent impulses. But thoughts do not become actions until you choose to act upon them. Once you've chosen to act upon them, you have no moral high ground on which to stand. There is no excuse for resorting to violence as an outlet for anger. Full stop. There is no excuse. It doesn't matter what context, who you are, where you are. And many people think, oh, but what about if you're a soldier? No, because if you're a soldier on the battlefield, anger will be counterproductive and it'll make you make mistakes on your mission.
Yeah. I mean, the purpose of the military is to tear you down and remake you so that you are approaching situations not with anger, but more cool-headed.
Exactly. And so, again, as someone who has worked for years upon years on controlling my anger, of not giving in to these impulses, even though there are some days, and I work in customer service, so I have to deal with this a lot, some days where just that urge to act out, that urge to go out and start beating people over the head with a baseball bat wrapped with barbed wire like Negan, that urge to run my car through a crowd of protesters, there are days where it is literally scratching at the door. But it's all I can muster to not explode. And it is something I've worked hard at. So for those of you who think
I can guarantee that we have tons of sorry to keep interrupting you, but I can guarantee we probably have tons of stories like that amongst our listener base of people having to deal with real life so much that this is why they come to this podcast, and this is why they crack open a beer and just enjoy talking about something other than what they work on, because that's why this exists, is that we all have to have those moments. There's a reason that you like. I remember at one of the Christmas parties for my family, somebody was criticizing all of those kill your boss simulators that are out there, like all those flash games where you can kill your boss or kill whomever. There's a reason those exist. People need those outlets.
True, but at the same time,
I'm not saying they need exactly that, but people do need an outlet for this place to go. And unfortunately, some people go the unhealthy route. Whereas in Romney's case, he goes the healthy route.
Or at least I try to, and that's the struggle. And so, for those of you who try to justify these actions, there is no justification. The way he conducted himself, even if it was a case where he was going to end his stream soon, that's something he could just basically state as, hey, give me a little bit of time to wrap this up. You do not need to resort to violence or to shouting, especially when you're dealing with children who may not even understand the concept of time management because, they're 3 years old. And it takes time for them to understand that sort of thing. And so the fact that there are people who believe this is justified is sickening, to say the least. And right now I'm trying my very best to keep from shouting because I know it is not productive in this discussion. So to those of you who keep saying, oh yeah, but she started it, that doesn't change the fact that he chose to resort to violence. Yep. As soon as he made that choice, he lost any high ground that he would have had, if any at all. Nope. And that is the difference.
The only thing that I will say in kind of wrapping up to it is that it's one of those things where I know that we kind of went a little bit negative last year, so I'm going to try and not do that this year. And so where I would probably try to do at least a little bit of positivity here is my hope is after he got that permanent ban, he sat back and he actually tried to be a parent again. All right. And so at that point, he decided to go spend time with his kids, not in the abusive way, to being able to spend quality time with his kids so that he could appreciate what he might lose in these proceedings.
Indeed. And keep in mind, this is occurring in Australia. And Australia, their laws regarding this sort of thing are a bit more strict compared to the United States, especially since they've just barely passed the various, they've recently passed a resolution regarding domestic violence that I don't know the exact specifics. It was just some sort of protection that was put in place for victims of domestic abuse. That is something people have been pushing for. I'm going to look this up because I know it's a big deal that it was trending on Twitter for the longest time.
Yeah, I'm not remembering it off the top of my head, but I think I know what you're talking about, where they're amending a lot of this stuff and it's getting stricter. So at that point, we're probably talking a situation where he ain't gonna be living there anymore. All because of Twitch. He ain't gonna be living there. He might actually have a jail sentence. I'm not sure on that, but he might. While you're looking that up though, I'm gonna go ahead and move this along because again, this is just I think we've pretty much hit the nail on the head. This guy's a scumbag. We hope that he's learned from this, but more than likely, I hate to even say this, he probably hasn't. And so moving on into the next hour's worth of discussions here, we always start this off at the beginning of the year. It's official. The Oscar nominees are out, as well as the Razzie nominees. Alex actually did the extra footwork to be able to get us the Razzies. We're not necessarily going to go over all of the nominations for the Oscars, but we should point out a couple that are especially prominent. And that is one of them for Best Picture. So here are the nominees: Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star is Born, Vice, and Black Panther.
Yeah. We got a couple big deals here.
So we had a few listeners that brought this up and said, Drac, are you officially getting what you want? No. It is a Best Picture nomination, but frankly, we kind of covered that this was going to happen. Because remember, Marvel went the extra 10 miles to get Black Panther in as many nominations as possible. Sorry, Alex, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. Just putting the Marvel one aside for a minute, because it's kind of the predictable big choice to talk about here, but Roma's also kind of a big deal because that's a Netflix film. So this is the first Netflix movie to ever be nominated for an Oscar here.
Yep. And here's hoping it's not the last.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. Like I've already heard critics out there saying that Netflix should be relegated down to Golden Globe territory. And I'm sorry, that's bullshit. If it deserves an Oscar, then it should be nominated for an Oscar. Kind of thing. So yeah, I knew that there was a Netflix one. I'm glad that you caught that one because I didn't know the title. We also had Best Supporting Actor, Mahershala Ali for Green Book, Adam Driver for Black Klansman, Sam Elliott for A Star is Born, Richard E. Grant for Can You Ever Forgive Me, and Sam Rockwell for Vice. Not really a whole lot to get into there. Best Supporting Actress, Amy Adams for Vice, Marina de Tavira for Roma, Regina King for If Beale Street Could Talk, Emma Stone for The Favorite, and Rachel Weisz for the Favorite. And then the other one that I want to get into, because people ask when we do the Oscar coverage, is Best Animated Short and Best Animation. So first of all, Animated Short: Animal Behavior, Bow, Late Afternoon, One Small Step, and Weekends. Okay, so those are the Best Animated Short. Best Animated Film. Let me grab that one. Here we go. Best Animated Feature: Incredibles 2, Isle of Dogs, Mirai, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is the other one that people thought was very shocking, as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse got a nomination. Now, given the praise that I've been hearing from a lot of people, Stephen Romney included, I'm not so surprised. If it's getting that much praise, then yes, it deserves a place here. What's really kind of disconcerting, in my opinion, is you have Ralph Breaks the Internet and The Incredibles 2.
Yeah, this is a bit of a tougher call because I'm hearing the praises all around from just about everybody about Into the Spider-Verse. It's not just it's beyond fandom at this point. Everybody's loving this movie, critics and moviegoers alike. It's huge. So
we've actually been getting crap on Dragon's Shadow because we passed it by.
Yeah,
and people are asking that we fix that.
Yeah, might just have to cave and watch it. So I just almost think if there could ever be an upset,
it'll be out in 2 months. We'll be okay.
Yeah. If there could truly be an upset for Disney, this could be it. It's hard to say. It's like it could go either way. I feel like it's going to be down to either Disney or Sony here, because it's going to be a tricky one to call on this one. Usually I say it's Disney's all the way, but Into the Spider-Verse has probably got the big fighting chance here.
What are the chances that we actually think Mirai has?
That would be really surprising. I don't think it stands a chance, though.
You too, Romney? Snowball's chance in hell?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, let's face it. It'll probably be limited to either the Disney films. Spider-Man is probably the only one that has a chance at any sort of upset.
Yeah. I'm kind of there too. And
it's nice to see Mirai. It's nice to see Mirai nominated. Very nice film. I mean, I said it should have. I think he should have been nominated as far back as Summer Wars or Wolf Children, but all right, you're right. Better late than never. So, but yeah, it's going to come down to Spider-Verse, or it's going to come down to one of Disney's films.
And see, here's the thing. I'm not so optimistic with you guys about Into the Spider-Verse, and the main reason I'm not is it's competing against 2 Disney films. That almost pretty much tells me Disney's getting it. If they were able to lobby for not 1 but 2 films to go on there, and I'm going to go ahead and say the thing that a lot of people are not going to be happy that I'm saying, including Brenton, unfortunately, who's not here. I don't think Ralph Breaks the Internet deserves an Oscar nomination. I'm more on the fence when it comes to Incredibles 2, but that's just because, considering what they actually tried to do with it, I do think that they had some really great ideas. But if I were to take a wild guess, guys, and people aren't going to like this, I'm thinking Ralph Breaks the Internet is going to get it, and it's simply because, oh look, it's a successful take on the Emoji Movie, and it's not really even that. It's not even close to what I've been told about the Emoji Movie. It really isn't. So at that point, I kind of want to see like Into the Spider-Verse win, but I'm just not as confident. Not with 2 Disney movies right there.
Okay, I just found the article I was looking for from our last story. I got it wrong. It's not Australia, it was New Zealand. And basically, New Zealand passed a law earlier this year that allows paid leave for victims of domestic violence, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, given how hard it is to get paid leave in most countries, that was something that was recently passed. So that was the tidbit I was wanting to bring up. It took forever, but I realized wrong country.
All good.
All right.
So with that being said, I'll go ahead and go into the other major ones, and then we'll move on into the Razzies. So Best Actor, we have Christian Bale for Vice, Bradley Cooper for A Star is Born, Willem Dafoe for At Eternity's Gate, Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody, Viggo Mortensen for Green Book. And for Best Actress, we have Yalitza Aparicio for Roma. If I'm saying that name wrong, I'm sorry. Glenn Close for The Wife, Olivia Colman for The Favorite, Lady Gaga for A Star is Born, and Melissa McCarthy for Can You Ever Forgive Me?
Oh, we got another dual Razzie Oscar nomination this year because she's also up for Razzie.
The other one that people want to know is Best Director, and that is Alfonso Cuarón for Roma, Spike Lee for BlacKkKlansman, Adam McKay for Vice, Paul Polikowski, I think is how you say it, for Cold War, and Yorgos Lanthimos for The Favorite. I'm not interested. Like, as cool as it is to see a Marvel superhero movie get into the Best Picture lineup, this should have happened years ago, and I get that why it's happening for Black Panther is because Marvel has been pushing for it all over the place.
Yeah, and to mitigate the Oscars so white controversy.
Yeah, as best as they can.
They're still going to complain. Let's just be honest. They're still going to complain.
Honestly, this is also a case where, because of that disastrous idea of achievement in popular film, the Academy tried to implement that.
Oh, yeah.
Quite rightly, pushed back against. It's a case of, well, crap.
Let's just be honest. Like, do we actually see the hosts not making fun of that? I honestly think that it was such a bad idea that they're going to make fun of it.
Probably, but
I don't think they're going to make fun of it. I still don't know who, if anyone, is hosting.
It's not Kevin Hart. We know that.
Not Kevin Hart, but no, it's going to be celebrated as, look how diverse we are. Because it's got a majority Black cast, but
yeah, it's kind of like how when Coco was up for the nomination for Best Animated Feature and how they kept trying to draw it to the politics of it with Eugenio Derbez like, oh, there's no walls in the afterlife. It's just like, that had nothing to do with the film. Why the hell would you bring it up?
Pretty much. So moving on into the Razzies, here's the nominations that we have. Worst Picture, Gotti, The Happy Time Murders, Holmes and Watson, Robin Hood, and Winchester. I can honestly see this going to either The Happy Time Murders or Holmes and Watson, because anytime those movies get brought up in conversations that I have, they are brought up in angry fashion. People are pissed at both of those movies.
I'd probably lean it more towards The Happy Time Murders, because Holmes and Watson, when you just look at the premise of John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell as Holmes and Watson, you know what you're walking into.
Exactly.
Like the trailers did not shy away from the fact of, yeah, we know this is stupid. That's kind of the joke.
Yeah.
So
So
Happy
we're
Time Murders, on the other hand, was actually a unique idea. It was meant to be something like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then it got turned into that.
Yeah. Worst director goes to Ethan Cohen for Holmes and Watson, Kevin Connolly for Gotti, James Foley for 50 Shades Freed, Brian Henson for Happy Time Murders, Spierig Brothers, Michael and Peter for Winchester. Worst actress, Jennifer Garner for Peppermint. I'm actually kind of happy about that nomination. Amber, I didn't see it, but the trailers definitely I could tell you that is not Jennifer Garner's best performance.
Well, yeah, basically Peppermint, like looking at the trailers, is like, oh, it's Taken. But
it's Taken with a woman.
I will
find it's something that's been done before.
I actually remember I did want to go see it.
You did want to see it.
It came out the weekend of my birthday, and which also I got tickets to go watch Jurassic Park with the live symphony, so of course I picked Jurassic Park any day.
Yeah,
and we're happy you did that.
Yeah, honestly, I remember a joke I made with my mom with Peppermint when it came out. Like, looking at the trailers, I'm just like, oh, so Jennifer Garner decided she wanted to play the Punisher.
Pretty much. So yeah, Jennifer Garner for Peppermint, Amber Heard for London Fields, Melissa McCarthy for Happy Time Murders and Life of the Party. So she got nominated twice. Helen Mirren for Winchester, Amanda Seyfried for The Clapper. And okay, so moving into worst actor, Johnny Depp for Sherlock Gnomes, and this was a voice role. Will Ferrell for Holmes and Watson. That's probably the first time I've seen Will Ferrell get a Razzie nomination.
They should have not. I'm gonna check. Because I'm pretty sure Bewitched would have gotten a nomination.
I would think, but I can't remember if he was on there. John Travolta for Gotti, Donald J. Trump as himself, Death of a Nation and Fahrenheit 11/9. Bruce Willis, Death Wish. Beating a dead horse there, Razzies. Worst supporting actor, Jamie Foxx for Robin Hood. So Jamie Foxx trying to do a Morgan Freeman impression. Ludacris as a voice for Show Dogs. Joel McHale for Happy Time Murders. John C. Reilly for Holmes and Watson. Justice Smith for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Is he the guy that didn't get eaten?
Yeah.
He gets it.
All right, so looking at this, Bewitched was nominated for multiple Razzie Awards, so this isn't the first time Will Ferrell's been nominated.
Yeah, actually, he won for Worst Screen Couple with Nicole Kidman for Bewitched.
Okay.
Every time I think of I just gotta divert real quick. Anytime I think of Bewitched, I just think of that Family Guy joke where Stewie flies out of the way to California to punch Will Ferrell for that I'm a Clippers fan joke.
That's funny. All right, worst supporting actress, Kellyanne Conway as herself for Fahrenheit 11/9. Marcia Gay Harden for 50 Shades Freed. Kelly Preston for Gotti. Jazz Sinclair for Slender Man. Melania Trump as herself, Fahrenheit 11/9. Again, Razzie's barking up the wrong damn tree.
Yeah.
Worst screenplay, Death of a Nation, 50 Shades Freed. Gotti, Happy Time Murders, and Winchester. Worst remake, spin-off, or sequel, Death of a Nation, remake of Hillary's America. Death Wish, Holmes and Watson. The Meg, which is a the Megalodon for a ripoff of Jaws, and Robin Hood. Worst screen combo, any two actors or puppets in the Happy Time Murders.
Especially in those creepy sex scenes.
Johnny Depp, Sherlock Gnomes. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, Holmes and Watson. Kelly Preston and John Travolta, Gotti. Donald J. Trump, Death of a Nation, and Fahrenheit 11/9. Jiminy Christmas. Just beating a dead horse there, Razzies.
Yeah, I mean, people complain about the politics and the Oscars. Razzies, come on.
Yeah, you got it. And it's been getting worse over years. And so now it's full swing. I don't even buy into the whole concept that Trump derangement syndrome is a thing. But now this Razzie list makes me go, I think you guys need some group sessions.
I said this last year when we talked about last year's Oscars. I don't think you were there for it, Adam, but I think I said last year's Oscars and Razzies, and I said, and that was when Dinesh D'Souza's movies were up for Razzies, and I'm like, look, I get the politics behind them are stupid, but it's like, Razzies, I see you more as there to mock the worst out of Hollywood,
yes!
not whatever some fringe filmmaker is out there doing.
At that point, like it doesn't really even look like you have legitimate gripes with the film that they made. It looks like you've got an axe to grind. And that's kind of my issue with it, is that, okay, you've got this axe to grind. That's why it's getting a Razzie nomination. And it's pointless because we already know that that nomination is going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what happens when you grind an axe too much. It loses its edge and loses its point.
I mean, come on. You could have nominated Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom a few more times.
Needed more nominations than what it got.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
How was Jurassic World not in here for worst remake sequel ripoff? Because that was just terrible.
Yeah. I look at this with the whole, I
would have made the joke and just said it was ripping off Dino Crisis.
Dino Crisis,
yeah. But, and again, I look at kind of this whole thing against Holmes and Watson. I'm just like, oh, they're trashing two of literature's most beloved parody. I'm just like, do you not know what a parody is? I mean, we've done this before with, King Arthur, Robin Hood, and countless other characters. I'm just like, did you not see who was starring it? And I just look at this, I'm just like, did you not see who was starring in this film? How could you go in expecting anything else? Now, if it's a parody that's not funny, there I can get it. But if you're seeing it as a betrayal of characters, I'm just like, get over yourselves, people. I mean, come on. There's a reason that Monty Python and the Holy Grail is considered one of the more popular interpretations of King Arthur. Because people, can take a joke. They can laugh. I mean, one of Mel Brooks' most famous movies, Robin Hood Men in Tights, which also makes fun of Robin Hood.
Oh, I love Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks has so many good movies in his lineup.
Yeah, and so looking at this, I'm just like, okay, someone kind of, missed the point. I mean, you don't go into a film starring John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell expecting something hard-hitting and dramatic.
No.
I mean, that's just not what they do. I mean, if they're doing dramatic, they're not in the same movie together. They're usually in separate projects. And John C. Reilly can do serious when he needs to, beyond just Wreck-It Ralph. I mean, he did really good in Cirque du Freak and a few other more dramatic stuff. But again, if they're in the same movie, you know what you're paying for. It's like the people who complain about Adam Sandler movies. I'm just like, it's an Adam Sandler movie. What the hell are you expecting it to be?
If you're expecting it to be rocket science, you are in the wrong profession.
Indeed. It's very much, I hate to quote the Patrick Willems quote, but it's like, if you're expecting a comedy with two well-known comedic actors to be anything but a comedy, you're watching movies wrong.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, so we need to wrap this one up so that we can get into the next story. But the final story that we have before we get into a new segment that we have for the podcast tonight actually hit, I want to say, I think it's been going on for like 1 to 2 weeks before this point. And that is a YouTuber actually wanted to make, specifically the YouTube channel Star Wars Theory, wanted to make a Darth Vader fan film called Shards of the Past, I think is the title that he went with.
Oh, yeah, it actually has been made. I'm actually a subscriber to Star Wars Theory, so I've actually seen it. He set out to make a Star Wars fan film, so much so he actually went to the trouble to actually contact people at Lucasfilm to kind of make sure that he was going to remain in their good graces of, okay, I want to make this fan film, but I don't want to piss you guys off. What are the rules I need to abide by? And
he was given some very clear guidelines.
Yeah, which was basically you couldn't crowdfund the movie and you can't monetize it. And those were pretty good. It's like, hey, you can't go to Patreon, you can't go to Kickstarter to fund this movie specifically. It has to be private investors, and you can't make money off of it because you don't have the rights to the IP. And
which I've already heard people on Lucasfilms, like people decrying Lucasfilm and saying that's unfair of them for making those requirements. No, that makes a lot of sense, actually. It is their property, and it's Disney that owns it. They don't want you making money off of their property at this point.
Yeah, unless you've actually been given permission, like unless you've actually been hired by Lucasfilm to work on the Star Wars property, it's very much a case of it's a fan project, it can't be canon, and you can't make money off of it. This was actually this is a policy that was in place even before Lucas sold the franchise to Disney.
Oh, yeah, he didn't like that stuff at all either.
Well, he didn't like it, but he still encouraged it. There were actual like Lucasfilm sanctioned Star Wars fan film festivals.
I think he did like it though.
We like that you're passionate. You just can't make money off of it because it's not yours. But if you want to make your fan film, we're not going to stop you. You just can't sell it.
To answer your question, Alex, he didn't mind it, and when they came up with the good ideas, he was more than willing enough to praise it. But he also had a bit of a bug when people did stuff better than him, according to public perception. He didn't take those well.
Well, everybody kind of perceives that for any like fan project that gets kiboshed,
Well,
unfortunately.
it's one of the stereotypical things that got known for with George Lucas. Like,
Yeah,
you did better than him, that he kind of took it personally.
yeah. I mean, unless it was something that he officially sanctioned and was making him money, so that's why the extended universe kind of got as crazy as it did.
Absolutely.
Was because it's a case of, if it's officially licensed, meaning that he's going to make money off of it, then he's just like, yeah, it can be canon.
Well, and that's part of the reason why Disney had to step in and say we can't accept the expanded universe. There's just too much to go over.
Too many inconsistencies, more specifically.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where that's kind of the nature of this story. And as someone who's actually been following this, what happened is that he worked on this fan film, shot it over the course of 3 months, and debuted it, and then he uploaded it to YouTube after he had formally premiered it. And from what I saw of the actual film, it's actually pretty damn good for a fan production. It actually has ideas that Lucasfilm should actually consider using instead of what they've currently been doing.
It has expanded universe ideas. Just from what I've been able to see, it has expanded universe ideas that are amazing.
Yeah, and the ideas aren't even that too far-fetched. It's not like they're creating new characters. It's just a case of, okay, here's this gap of time between episode 3 and episode 4. Here are these things that haven't really been explored. And the thing that I liked about it is that it did something that most of the other projects that focus on Vader don't really do, and that's them exploring the actual psychology of Darth Vader as a character. I mean, you see that a little bit in the recently concluded Star Wars Darth Vader comics that Marvel put out, but that's an important thing. It understood the emotions of the characters. It didn't just, I mean, as much as I like Rogue One, it didn't just throw Darth Vader in, like this fan film understood Darth Vader as a character, as a presence in the universe, and didn't just throw it in for the sake of fan service like Rogue One did. And again, I liked Rogue One, but the inclusion of Darth Vader was exactly that, fan service.
Pretty much. I mean, like that's the way that you have to interpret that. He wasn't meant to have a solid role there. He was meant to go in and kick ass, chew bubblegum, and all of the stuff in between kind of thing. We knew that he was going to fail.
Yes, and that's
why he comes out pissed in episode 4 kind of thing.
So moving on to the actual story here, what happened is that shortly after this fan film that was officially approved by Lucasfilm, although not canon, Lucasfilm basically said, yeah, go for it. We're not going to come after you. Shortly after it was uploaded, the video was copyright claimed by Disney and by Warner Chappell, which is basically a firm that is a music group and corporate collective that files copyright claims for videos using different music. And they filed a claim, and then Disney piggybacked on that claim saying, oh, you're using the Imperial March.
Yeah, so their claim was that the song used was a rendition of the Imperial March. It was another variation on it.
Yeah. Even though the creator of the channel, his real name, I'm going to look it up here because, let's see, I only see his last name.
Tos. That's probably not his full name.
That's his last name from the looks of it, because it doesn't list his full name here. It just lists his last name as Tos, or I'll just call him Star Wars Theory for the sake of simplicity here. Yeah. He actually went to the trouble to hire a composer, and the amount of money we're talking of making this fan film, he spent well over $100,000 to make this fan film. Yeah. And so this was money he raised on his own to do this fan project. And although he can't make money off of the YouTube revenue, it basically got claimed and blocked and not able to be viewed by people because of this 1-2 punch. And Warner Chappell themselves were saying, hey, if you dispute this claim, this video is ours, we're going to take you down. And so that was kind of the situation he was in, where it was claimed and there was nothing he could do about it. And Warner Chappell, being the third party ad revenue sort of claim company that they are, basically intimidated them, saying, hey, if you try to dispute this in any way, we'll just take your video down. But fortunately, there is a silver lining. And that silver lining is that Lucasfilm actually stepped in saying, no, you don't do this, back off.
Yeah, no, they clarified that they had authorized it. And so at that point, as long as he fulfilled his requirements, which he did, that they stepped in, and the video is now up and everybody can watch it. In fact, I would recommend people watch it.
Yes, I especially recommend it. If you've been dissatisfied with Star Wars as of late and want to kind of show what Star Wars looks like when it's handled by someone who actually understands it, because this guy, with his theories and his what ifs, he goes into a lot of depth, and so you can tell he is someone who understands Star Wars on a more fundamental level than I think some of the filmmakers working on it now officially understand it. I mean, if I was in a position of power at Lucasfilm, I'm just like, okay, Ryan, we kind of like what you did here, but we're going to bring this guy. He seems to understand the story a little bit better than you do.
Well, and what's funny is like, so Star Wars Theory as well as Stupendous Wave, I follow both of those for their Star Wars coverage, and especially their expanded universe coverage, because there's just crap I've forgotten as well as crap that I haven't fully understood throughout my life. And so it's great to be able to have those clarifications. And when I saw I want to say it was a trailer I saw that he was working on this, I immediately looked at it. I still haven't seen this film, and I recommend that people do. I looked at it and went, holy crap, this guy is making expanded universe for Darth Vader look amazing.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you consider the premise of the whole series itself. And it's a premise, it's not like any spoilers, because this was actually part of his ideas that he kind of pitched, is that the basic premise of Shards of the Past is that Darth Vader is sent on a mission to take out some remaining Jedi who survived Order 66. One particular Jedi being one that he had dealt with before he turned, one Mace Windu. And that's kind of what's got everyone excited, is that, okay, although it's not canon, it's very much, we're going to see Darth Vader going up against Mace Windu.
Which took the Star Wars Theory channels and threw them for a loop, because this is one of the things they love to speculate, is what happened to Mace Windu after his confrontation. Did he just die? Did he create a respirator and slowly slump away, kind of thing? And so this is an amazing bit of lore that they can check into, that also kind of goes into what we know from Expanded Universe. This is you're going to be able to see the conflict that Vader was going through at this time, that Obi-Wan alludes to in later movies, basically saying that this is when he destroyed Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that's been explored in the comments, where they've more or less established that Darth Vader is a separate personality within Anakin Skywalker. This is not just.
I love that concept, by the way. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you consider how he was effectively tricked and everything that has happened, that would naturally be a coping mechanism someone would use if they realize, the wife that I was trying to save, I end up killing in my anger. The closest analog I can think of is similar to Siegfried and Nightmare in Soul Calibur, where Siegfried, after killing his father on accident, after basically raiding with his bandit group Schwarzwind, and it's like, these are knights who left the Crusades, they don't matter. And then realizing he killed his father, he naturally kind of said like, no, I didn't do it. It was this Azure Knight. That's who did it. Eventually leading him down the path to become Nightmare. This would naturally be what would happen with Anakin. So traumatized by what he had done, he would naturally cultivate and embrace this Sith personality that is more or less a puppet of Palpatine, but a very unwilling but powerless puppet who basically is just this giant ball of machine and anger. And so it's a fascinating thing. And so this fan film, and I'm hoping we'll get the later episodes in due time, because what we are getting here is
spent a lot of money.
Spent a lot of money, and it's a cool idea, and it just shows this is what you can get when you have someone who is passionate and understands Star Wars on a deeper level than just the superficial. This is the kind of quality you can expect. This is why some of the extended universe stuff tends to be better than some of the official stuff.
Yeah, I would be the first guy to recommend that any of our audience that are listening tonight, please go see this film and support it, so that at that point, this guy knows that, he is appreciated, that his work is appreciated, not just by Lucasfilm, but by the fans that have been desperate for lore like this since, the last couple of movies that have been coming out. So at that point, please support this so that we can see like more episodes from him, because I'd be very interested. And
plus it'll send a message to Lucasfilm, whether they like it or not, of, hey, this is what people want from Star Wars. They don't want the superficial subversion of expectations and the only surface level understanding that we got in The Last Jedi, and to an extent, The Force Awakens. And so, it's good on Lucasfilm on actually stepping in, saying, hey, you don't get to intimidate this channel. They went to the trouble to get our blessing. They went to the trouble to come to us, especially with a group like Warner Chappell. I mean, Disney, that one's a case of, Disney, they got permission. Let's not waste our time here. But with Warner Chappell saying, we'll take you down, Lucasfilm's just like, no. I mean, the way I can see it, if someone were to draw this, you'd see Warner Chappell like brandishing the light. Oh no, better example. You see Warner Chappell pulling out the blaster, like, yeah, this isn't going to happen, and then they fire the blast, and you just see Lucasfilm hold out the hand and it's just like, and just pull the blaster out of their hand. It's just like, yeah, no, not going to happen.
Exactly. Final thoughts on this one from you, Alex, since we've both kind of given our opinion on it.
You guys pretty much said everything well said. It's great to see, for once, somebody get a break in how batshit insane copyright, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act can be. So, yay!
All right. Now, like I said, we're a little late on time, and I want to make sure that we wrap up on time. But I do actually want to go over this, is that we have a brand new segment on the podcast, because one of the major, I don't want to say criticisms, because it was constructive criticism that was being given to us, is unfortunately, this was kind of out of our hands last year, but a lot of the stuff we covered was fairly negative. Why? Because that's kind of how 2018 ended up. In fact, you guys have no idea how much I'm so happy to see 2018 go, because there was just so much bull crap, both with the stories that we had to cover as well as crap that was going on in my life too, that I wanted to say good riddance to, kind of thing. But you guys kind of got the feel of like, this isn't what we signed on for. We were looking for more positive stuff. We were looking for you guys to have more fun. And so that was really a lot of the constructive criticisms that you as listeners gave us, and something that I want to kind of bring back, because even I'll admit, given the circumstances of the year, we really need this again. And one of the segments I want to bring in here, I've been looking for a way to be able to implement this for a while, and I think this is probably going to be the best way to be able to do it, is a segment that I would now like to call Build a Better Geek, because I get tons of questions from you guys of like, crap is happening in gaming and in movies and in anime, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. How can we be better? How can we work to improve the situation in our particular fandom? How can we be better as geeks to be able to start combating all of this stuff, especially, some of the stereotypes that people get brought up with geeks? And one of the big sparking stories that did that was when you guys covered, because I wasn't there, the whole increase in marriage, or the whole increase in divorce rate if at least one of those spouses was a gamer, kind of thing. And so with that, that's what this segment is supposed to be, is just finding little ways for us to be able to improve on ourselves, as well as improve our friends or other things like that, to be able to help us all to become better geeks, so that we can hopefully be able to counteract some of the negative that's happening in these industries, as well as be able to live better lives, be able to enjoy life more than unfortunately we have been able to in these last few months. And the first one that I wanted to give as a first topic to be able to discuss, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, for topics on this particular segment, the floor is open. I'm starting this up tonight, but our panelists can come up with suggestions that they have come up with, or that they've come across in their own lives. You guys as listeners can also do that as well. I already have I have a feeling we have a couple of ideas down the line now that the segment has been announced. But without further ado, the first one that I want to bring up is one that's kind of personal to me over the last month, as a lot of friends have actually not known that I did this. And I've gotten a little bit of crap on places like Twitter and Facebook, just like, where the heck are you? At the end of December, I made the announcement kind of quickly that I was going to be taking a social media break for about a month. Just because where a lot of people are complaining about YouTube burnout, I was having that on social media really bad. And unfortunately, part of that was because I would get onto Twitter, and 80% of the crap that I would see on my Twitter feed was negative. And I'd spend most of my time, during the day on Twitter, either muting the negative or getting rid of it in some capacity. And it never helped. So I decided I'm taking 30 days off, and it's been an amazing thing for me to be able to do. And so my first piece of advice for Build a Better Geek here is know yourself well enough to know when to unplug from things like social media, because it surprises me, after being able to take as many days as I have. I'm coming up on my 30 days, and then I'll have to go back, unfortunately. But it's been so surprising to me how much, I thought it was bad enough for me that it was kind of becoming poison, where I would literally it felt like I was injecting myself with poison every time I was getting on Twitter. And I'm I'm not knocking the friends that are on Twitter and Facebook and all that. You guys weren't the problem. The problem was the general feeds that I was walking into. And I try to avoid every single day. And it's been such a help to be able to clear my head and be able to enjoy life more, because I don't have my head steeped in negative that is going on all around in current events, in gaming, in wherever. And so it's been really helpful. And I've seen so many other people, after being able to recommend it to friends, them getting that benefit as well, being able to unplug from social media or whatever is causing them that initial problem, and just see their head clear and be able to enjoy life a little bit more, be able to spend time with their family, be able to spend time with their spouse or their girlfriend or guy friend, whatever it might be. It is such a benefit now these days, when so much of our lives is tied to these social media platforms, to be able to step back and actually, you know, I hate to use the Simpsons analogy, but step outside and be able to start playing out in the real world again, and not have to worry about, you know, what this troll on Twitter is saying about me, kind of thing. And so this is the first one that I want to start off with, but I want to get the opinions of our panelists. What are you guys sitting on, like, on the importance of being able to know when to unplug from social media?
Well, speaking from personal experience, and this is kind of the reason why people don't really see me actively comment on major stories as they break on Facebook or Twitter, unless it is something that I feel actually warrants it. And I've been trying to implement a bit of advice that came from the YouTube singer-songwriter Joy Frost, because she talks about this, and she's also someone who has a history of mental health issues that she's also actively worked on. And I also just speak from someone who hit that period of social media burnout. It does exhaust you and it stresses you out, especially when you consider how Facebook has actively manipulated what people see on social media as part of an experiment on how to manipulate people's emotions. Yes, this was an actual thing, and yes, this came up during a congressional hearing. So it's very much one of those cases where, much like any sort of media consumption, you have to know kind of when to unplug, or at the very least, when to filter out the stuff that you just don't actually need to focus on.
Yeah.
I mean, as dismissive as this might sound, sometimes, like, okay, yeah, it's cool to see some little news and tidbits about like a certain franchise that you like, or about a certain celebrity that you like to follow. But it's also, there are times where you have to actually step back and ask, like, okay, how important is it that I know about the day-to-day goings-on with this particular topic? And this is kind of why, and although it's something that I've kind of noticed, but this is kind of why you never see our show cover things like tabloid media, anything involving particular celebrities, because
I mean, I cover rumors from time to time, but that's not like stuff that's out of the Inquirer.
Yeah, like most of the rumors we cover are things that directly relate to the production of the media we consume. Yeah. I mean, I remember it was back when our Radio SLCC days, before I had even my driver's license, my dad would pick me up when we were finished recording. And one of the things he asked was like, oh, you cover entertainment news. Please tell me you're not one of those people that covered about Kim Ye's baby. And I'm just like, first, the fact that you refer to them as Kim Ye disturbs me. And second, no, our show.
Did you bring this up to us? Because I'm not even remembering it.
No, I never mentioned this to you guys, but this was like,
okay, all right.
Like in the early days when we were at Radio SLCC. My dad just picked me up one day after recording, because we would record late in the evenings, and because every other media outlet was going crazy about Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's child, he literally just said, like, please tell me you're not one of those people that covers Kim Ye's baby. And I'm just like, I had to do a double take. I'm just like, okay, my dad literally saying Kim Ye in a sentence, not ironically, not sarcastically, saying it with legitimate concern, freaked me out. But luckily, I'm just like, okay, that's something we never cover, because
I mean, if Kim Ye's baby was a world-class Mario player, maybe we'd cover him. But you know,
even then, I doubt it. I mean, more than likely, it would probably be like somehow like, oh, Kanye decided to buy him a functional Zaku 2 for his birthday or something. That would be the closest thing.
That'd be amazing.
Given that, yeah. But anyways, it's kind of one of those, to get back on point, there are some pieces of information that you just don't need to follow.
No.
I mean, you might think you do, but it's a case of, okay, is this something that actually ties to something I care about, something that I follow? No? Okay, because in addition to unplugging from social media, I would recommend people go through your Twitter feed, go through your Facebook feed, see if there are pages that you follow that you just honestly don't care about and that you're not even sure why you remember you followed them in the first place.
What's funny that's actually happened now that I'm getting ready to come back to social media is there are a couple things that happened after about the first week. One, the creativity train in my brain, which had not been running for about a year at that point, just went roaring back to life. Like I was literally coming up with silly segments to do on whatever podcast at that given moment. So already that was a good thing as far as I'm concerned. The other thing too that also happened was I literally made a list, and maybe at some point I'll share this with people via social media or something like that, of pages that I follow, of groups that I follow, and just started taking the hatchet to them via this list. And it's actually my intention when I do come back to social media to immediately to lose them. Because at that point, one of the reasons that I'm thoroughly convinced that I was as depressed as I eventually got in 2018. And for those who do know me, like I do suffer from pretty bad depression, especially in winter months. I'm actually kind of surprised that I wasn't in a worse spot when I was losing sleep, taking care of the newborn daughter. This has just been such a godsend to me to be able to say, like, I can take a breath of fresh air and I don't have to hear half the crap that comes out on Twitter. And again, this is not a knock towards the friends that I follow. The friends that I follow, I value and cherish, some of which you see as panelists on this podcast and others. And I value and cherish those guys, but they're not the ones that dominated my Twitter feed. The ones that dominated my Twitter feed were, unfortunately, in some cases, celebrities that were saying really stupid things, or advertisements all over the place, and advertisements I would actually dare say, like, telling me how ineffectual I am, kind of thing, like literally trying to pull me down so I would buy their product. And then all the various groups that I'd be following on Facebook that just were pointless to some extent. Like, they actually hurt more than they helped.
Yeah, and another factor to consider is that the human brain can only handle so much information at any given time because, I mean, if you're constantly looking on social media and you're constantly seeing the sky is falling or the world is ending or we're 3 steps away from becoming a military dictatorship, naturally that's going to make you feel kind of depressed and not wanting to really try at anything.
Well, and the worst part about that is that it leaks into the positive aspects of your life. It leaks into those. You don't even want them to, but a lot of people have mentioned, like on me and Alex's Let's Play channel, wow, track has been really kind of a downer this year. And part of that I have to say I have to blame is that I was intentionally down and I was trying to play it off as if I wasn't. And part of that was just because, unfortunately, given the line of work that we go into, we have to spend a lot of time on it, which means we have to interact with people. We have to be able to say that we've at least spent this amount of time on Twitter, this amount of time on Facebook. And that can get really unhealthy, especially considering the crap that you have to deal with.
And especially if you're the type of person that follows a lot of friends on social media, like people from high school, and when you see how much better off they're doing and how that can basically ram a knife right through your self-esteem on a very consistent basis, the best advice I would give, and it's advice that Joy Frost even implemented in one of her videos, is that sometimes you just need to know when to put down the phone and focus on something else that isn't tied to social media, that isn't tied to any like outstanding project. I mean, people may wonder why I don't upload as many videos frequently, and that's because, well, you have to unplug, not just from social media, but from the internet in general, and just recharge and do what you need to do for you that isn't tied to any other specific thing. I mean, the hardest lesson to learn that I've had to learn in this past year was learning how to just playing a game for the sake of just playing a game, not for a review, not for a discussion, not for preparation for a podcast, just having fun, doing something you enjoy, and just letting it be that and nothing else. And in this day and age, especially with how the internet is like a mile per second, it's a skill that is really, really hard to cultivate, and it's become all the more necessary in this day and age.
This is actually, I'm glad that you hit that on the head, and then we'll get to Alex because he's been kind of quiet on this one. But you've actually kind of hit the nail on the head of what I've been dealing with also in the last couple of years when I started up doing reviews. Is like, unfortunately, with a review, especially with a current game review, you have a deadline. You have to be able to meet that. I've never met it, for the record. Like on any of my reviews, I've never met it. In fact, I'm very much doing this year what I did last year, which is I was so far behind that I had to just run through it all and then get the reviews out as quick as I possibly could. I'm unfortunately in that situation again, which is why I recently just made an update on my channel saying, look, I can't do this anymore, because one of the things that would happen is I'm not saying you're supposed to enjoy your work kind of thing, but since this was something that I was putting money into, and that I was constantly purporting to everybody on YouTube that I enjoyed, it became a job. And so at that point, I started to lose interest in it. I didn't want to do it. And gaming is one of the things that I love doing. I've made the claim numerous times. Like, I will literally, before I go to bed, I will go and grind on something just to zone out, just to be able to metaphorically crack open a beer and just listen to whatever I want to listen to, kind of thing. And I wasn't doing that anymore. That wasn't fun to me anymore. Gaming wasn't fun. And so a lot of the reasons why I have made the changes on my channel that I have, which is basically in the favor of what Romney and Alex do, favor of more quality and less quantity, is so that I can enjoy these things again and be able to show that passion to you guys, which is what I wanted to do with my channel in the first place, kind of thing. That's what I felt like I brought to the table, was the passion that I had. And I haven't had that in a while.
Yeah, and this is why I stopped doing weekly movie reviews, because I was no longer enjoying it for that same reason. It became a job, especially a job that I wasn't getting paid for either, that I was paying to do.
That's the biggest part, is like you're making it a job. You're not even getting paid for it. You are paying out for it.
Yeah, you're paying out for the privilege of doing it for very little returns. And so that's another important thing, is that, to kind of get back on the main point, is that you just need to know when to just put everything away and just relax for the sake of relaxing, not because you're trying to do something for some other end. I remember our former panelist Aldo even talked about the idea of how he recently just unplugged all of his social media devices and all computer, everything, and just sat on his couch listening to music for the sake of just relaxing and listening to music.
And he's kind of one of the reasons I did it. Him and seeing a bunch of YouTubers like Dave Rubin saying that they did it religiously. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could take 30 days. And I'm like, why don't you?
And I mean, and honestly, this is kind of the idea behind and to get somewhat religious here, although I myself am not religious, that's kind of the idea behind a Sabbath day. It's a day where you don't work on anything, that you just rest. I mean, it's in most Judeo-Christian religions where on the seventh day God rested, and that's kind of where that idea comes from, is that people back then knew that that was an important thing, of just taking that time to rest and appreciate the world as it is.
Exactly. Alex, anything you want to add to this?
I'm not sure there's much I can add, because
you're fairly unplugged.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go to Twitter terribly often. I mostly go to blast a new video, and what I do, I might spend a small amount of time, because there's like 3 favorite channels I like following on Twitter right now. And one is You Had One Job, the other's the Darwin Awards, and the last is ALOT. So I follow fairly comedic stuff to laugh at and have fun with, and retweet and blast, or just to get a couple announcements here and there for upcoming like theatrical releases. So I guess, I feel like you guys kind of said it all. It's just, you gotta know when to unplug, when to take it easy, and when to zone out. And that's just something I've always tried to do myself, between work and between everything else. Just know when to go and when to relax.
Yeah, I can only imagine what would be happening if you were doing the hectic pace that you already do and you were checking Twitter every day.
Yeah,
you'd probably be 10 times more angry than you usually are.
Yeah, I'd probably be much more because I think of myself, and I don't know, maybe others will tell me differently, but I already kind of think of myself as a high-strung person, and so I really do need to keep things in check and keep things in perspective.
No, you're not a high-strung. Yeah. I mean, but part of that is because of what you're doing, you know. Like, unfortunately, you work in a very high-strung environment, and then you come home and you have to kind of work that off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's already a difficult kind of thing. But unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I hope that this is a great way to be able to showcase to you guys like what Build a Better Geek is looking to do. It's not necessarily going to be a regular thing. I'm going to make it as regular as I possibly can, but feel free to leave suggestions or questions that we can cover here on Build a Better Geek, because as much as crap gets really bad out there in the gaming and movie world, unfortunately, that's kind of why this podcast is here, to be able to sit back and make fun of it, as well as be able to sit back and enjoy the better things of being a geek kind of thing. And that's kind of what I'm not saying that this podcast has been absent in it, but it's definitely something that I want to bring more of a focus into, especially when it looks like things in gaming aren't going to get much better kind of thing. So this is definitely something that I want to bring back to the podcast, and obviously let us know you guys' feedback so that we can continue to improve the podcast. But I think this is going to be something that we will enjoy, as well as you guys will enjoy also. But let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. First of all, we want to thank the live chat that has been able to join us on YouTube. We really do appreciate you guys coming out and supporting the podcast. And if people want to be able to reach out to our individual channels and be able to see the work that we are doing, Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do they do that with you?
I'm on YouTube. Shadow Blazer 3000 is my channel. I do anime content and the occasional Let's Play. And as I said at the start of the show, they have a brand new review out. It is for Princess Principal. I was originally going to do Fruits Basket first, just in light of the news, but because I got my nice shiny big collector set in December, I really decided, I really want to go watch the show again. It's been about a year. I want to see how the dub is. So I got in the mood to watch it, and then I'm like, no, I really want to talk about it again. So Princess Principal review is on my channel. It, like I said, it had a snag, but that's resolved, so it's out there. You can watch it, enjoy it, let me know what you think. So check it out. And I'm on Twitter at AlexJShort, and I always blast out videos on it.
And occasionally give your feedback. That does happen from time to time. Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me under my handle both on YouTube and Facebook, Studio Ghost Utah. I upload to both when I actually have something to upload. And as I'm sure most of you are aware, I am working on something that I plan on uploading. It's just going to, take a couple months. And I'm also on Instagram under Romney Does Art, which mainly features photos of food that I've cooked, cats, bagels, cats, and impromptu reviews of Nintendo Switch games, as well as Nintendo Switch gameplay tips when I feel so inclined. And as for this week's Ronnie's recommendation, it's a bit of a return to form. They felt it was appropriate given that it's the first episode of the year, so it's another recommendation for Romney's Reading Club, and that is The Tao of Kung Fu by Bruce Lee. Now, for those of you who don't know who Bruce Lee is, what rock have you been living under? As I've mentioned, I'm a martial artist, and it's something I've been fascinated with my entire life. And what this book is, Bruce Lee, international superstar, pretty much paved the way for martial arts in the West. The Tao of Kung Fu is a thesis paper that he wrote during his time at the University of Washington. It's been reconstructed from both his writings in college, as well as various scrapbooks and other notes that he had taken throughout his all too brief life, and compiled by John Little, who's kind of considered the foremost authority on Bruce Lee, who he is, so much so he was given access to some of his personal archives in order to compile this book. While this was written long before he had his fight with Wong Jackman, and long before his creation of what we now know as Jeet Kune Do, which was his martial art. But you see a lot of the early foundations of what led to the creation of Jeet Kune Do in these early writings, and given that it is compiled from notes he wrote It is a little repetitive as he revisits a lot of ideas multiple times because, again, they were drafted from working notes, kind of like the Silmarillion. And it's a very fascinating read to kind of see how even back then, even though he was still devoutly loyal to Wing Chun as a martial arts style, kind of the notion of, hey, the way some styles of Kung Fu is taught is, kind of BS, and we needed to kind of cut out the BS. And you can kind of see those gears starting to turn before the pivotal fight with Wang Jackman that led him to create Jeet Kune Do. So that's this week's Ronnie's recommendation is The Tao of Kung Fu, Commentaries on the Chinese Martial Arts, written by Bruce Lee and edited by John Little, available where most books are sold.
All right. And if people want to be able to get a hold of me, you guys can follow me on Twitter when I do return in February at Drac2326. A lot of people have kind of noticed on Twitter is like, you still have your Christmas tagline up, because I literally have not done any, I think I made the promise that I was going to go to social media every day, at least once, to be able to go and check in on the notifications. I haven't even done that. I counted, it was 5 days in between most of the time that I would check notifications. And so I come back and it's like 20 notifications. So I will be back, and it will be at Drac2326 on Twitter. However, I am also looking into possibly starting up on Instagram. When I do that, I will let you guys know as well, just because from what people are also telling me, as you guys can kind of tell, I'm fed up with Twitter and how it works. And a lot of people are inching me towards doing Instagram instead, because I might enjoy it better. So I'll keep you guys in the loop if that does happen. And also, obviously, check out my YouTube channel. Even though there's a lot of changes that some of my listeners and viewership are not necessarily all that happy about, I am happy to say that I'm basically bringing the passion back to my channel. So you guys will be able to enjoy things like the Tale of Drakvu, where I do a Let's Play of World of Warcraft. You can check out Diablo 3. The Let's Plays that I do of Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories with my wife, Andrea, as well as Final Fantasy VIII, which is going to be coming in February. You guys can check that out. You can also check out the various podcasts and live streams that have been done. And as an added bonus, if you guys want to see the latest episodes of Gaming with the Geeks, they are coming very soon as me and Stephen Romney tackle Silent Hill. Will Drac pee his pants?
Yes.
You'll have to decide when we get there. And also, you guys can look forward to, and I think Romney hasn't, I don't know if you've got it up yet or not.
No,
but
still working on it.
I'll go ahead and advertise if it's okay.
Sure.
Me and Stephen Romney actually were able to get into a screening of Dragon Ball Super Broly. And so that will be coming up on Studio Ghost Utah very soon, or wherever he decides to put it. We'll obviously link it. But hopefully it'll get the bad taste out of people's mouths when we had our last review, which was not so positive, about Ghostbusters 2016. Spoiler alert, it was very positive. We had a lot of good things to say about Broly. So
yep.
I have no problem saying that. And if people want to be able to follow the podcast directly, first things first that we ask that you guys do is follow the RSS feed. That's the best way to be able to support us. And that is geekyweek.podomatic.com. You can also follow the RSS feed on iTunes and on Google Play for Android users. You can also support us on social media under the exact same tagline for both Facebook and Twitter, which is Geeky NRO. And I'm planning to do more with those pages as we go along, basically try to get you guys' interaction on various stories or various announcements. You guys will be able to see that very soon. And also, you guys can check out all the awesome new changes that are coming to the podcast in 2019. In case you guys haven't heard us on the RSS feed, there's a little something at the beginning about zombies and defamation. How do you like that? And then, of course, if you guys want to be able to leave constructive criticism, feedback, as well as stories for the podcast, you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. Thank you guys so much for joining us in this first official episode of 2019. And we, of course, will be back next week for even more geek news, reviews, and opinions. So for me, for Romney, and for Alex, we'll see you guys next time.